This is the most famous tire you've never heard of, the Falken Rubitrek AT. It's offered in 43 different sizes, 4 different load ranges, and accommodates wheels from 15 to 20 inches. Yet, a quick Google search will net almost 0 results in only 2 YouTube videos. This is less information than I can find on the Nexen Rodian AT. And if you've never heard of that tire, you're just proving my point. Let's get into it. Hi, I'm Tyler, one of only 3 people to make a YouTube video on this tire. I come to this tire after having a previous vehicle with Wildpeak A T3Ws. As an owner of both, I can give you a little insight into what the difference is and why you might pick one or the other. The Rubatrek follows in the footsteps of the AT3W, one of the most popular all-terrain tires of all time. The AT3W staked its name on uncompromising off-road performance, the 3 Ws, wear, wet, and winter. The tire demonstrated great off-road and winter performance without sacrificing on-road characteristics. With the success of the original Wildpeak A T3W, Falken was able to expand their lineup to include a mud terrain tire, a rugged terrain tire, and another closer kind of Wildpeak all-season tire. So, in this vast lineup of Wildpeaks, where does this put the Rubatrek? So let's take a closer look at the Falken Rubitrek. And as a baseline, let's compare it to the even more popular AT3W so we can get better context about where this tire fits. In terms of materials, Falken states that both tires have the same silica tread compound. They offer the same 55,000 mile warranty for both tires. However, for the Falken Wildpeak, they offer a road hazard guarantee and a 30-day guarantee. Now, here's what the tires look like side by side using images from Falken's website. The main difference that you're going to notice here is slightly tighter gaps in between the tread blocks on the Rubatrek, whereas the Wildpeaks look a little larger. The shoulder and sidewall of the Wildpeak also looks slightly more aggressive and more raised from the sidewall of the tire. And just so we can demonstrate how minuscule the difference between these two tread blocks are, here's the Falken Wildpeak MT, their leading mud terrain tire. You'll see that this tire has even larger gaps between the tread blocks, as well as increasingly varied depth at each tread block. Some are super low below the surface of the tire, and the larger tread blocks have stepped ridges in them that are very pronounced. The outside sidewall is even more aggressive. This tire is completely designed to evacuate mud from the surface of the tire, as well as avoid being punctured by sharp rocks. You'll notice that the mud terrain tire comes with no mileage warranty from Falken. One of the minute details in the construction of the Rubatrek versus the Wildpeak is these tiny stepped ridges that happen on the tread blocks of the Wildpeak. On the Rubatrek, it's a standard vertical wall along the tread block. The Wildpeak has slightly more detail in how that tread pattern is designed, and those ridges are supposed to allow greater stability in the contact patch of the tire, as well as help evacuate rocks and gravel that may get stuck in the tread blocks. Speculating here, I might guess that these stepped ridges help slightly in conforming the tire to the surface it's trying to grip. So, just based on the tread pattern and the way the blocks are laid out on these two tires, we can make a couple small assumptions about the performance of each tire. The Wildpeak, which has the slightly larger gaps between the tread blocks, will probably be slightly better at evacuating mud and gripping loose off-road terrain. The Wildpeak will probably be slightly noisier due to the wider gaps that it has, which will trap more air and cause more variations in the air around it and create more road noise. However, neither of these tires is going to be great in mud. I can say this because I've had a set of Wildpeaks out in the sticky, clay-like mud that southern Idaho has to offer. Unless you're going into really watery or soupy mud, neither of these tires is going to be able to evacuate mud from its surface. They're going to get clogged. The Rubitrek's smaller tread blocks look a little bit like what I'm used to seeing on snow and winter tires, so they might have a slight edge there. They should be also slightly quieter than the Wildpeak. However, both tires have the 3-peak mountain snowflake certification. What this means is that each tire offers at least 10% better traction than a typical all-season tire in snowy conditions, particularly medium packed snow, which is what the test is conducted with. On Falken's website, they make identical comments about the tires being good in snow and resisting hydroplaning. Both tires feature Falken's 3D Canyon Sipe technology, which is supposed to provide more handling and stability. Both of these tires have a significant amount of siping, which makes them good choices for people who need winter performance from their all-terrain tires. Both tires offer the same heat diffusing technology along the sidewall, which should help keep the rubber cool and in good condition. In light truck sizes, both the Rubatrek and the Wildpeak are supposed to offer up to 19 30 seconds of tread depth. Compare that to a BFG KO2, which offers a maximum of 15 32nds of an inch of tread depth. Keep in mind, you can purchase a Rubatrek or Wildpeak with less than 19 32nds of an inch of tread depth. 19 32nds of an inch is the maximum. As an additional metric, we can look at Falken's own rating system, which they use to compare their tires. If we put up side by side the Rubatrek and the Wildpeak, oh, wait, they don't even rank the same criteria, so I don't know how I'm supposed to compare the tires. Like the disclaimer at the bottom says, I should be able to. Falken says, use this to compare our tires to each other, and then doesn't measure the same criteria. So I thought that would be helpful, but it's not. Thank you, Falken. Anyway, let's see what we can learn from this joke bar chart thingy. Falken's only stated difference where they actually have a difference in the same category, tire to tire, is tread life. Supposedly the Rubatrek gets a half point more for tread life. You'll notice that it compares wet performance and wet braking, in which case Falken's Wildpeak has a half point difference in wet braking. Is braking and performance the same thing? I don't know. I really wish Falken had actually just used the same criteria for each tire. For example, I really wanted to know if they thought one was better on MPG, but I guess we'll never know. On the Rubatrek page, it specifically has a question about what's the difference between the T3W and the Rubatrek. Oh, wait, we don't know the difference. We make both of these tires, but they're just the same, except for where they're different, is basically what Falken is telling us. Thank you so much. I wanted to know how the differences in the design made the tires perform differently, not that they are different tires. I already knew that. Thank you, Falken. This has been so helpful. We do, however, have another method from Falken to judge these tires, and that's price. How Falken prices these tires should tell us something about how much they cost to make, how much development went into them, and which one is the better tire, maybe. For all things tires, I use TireSize.com, not because I'm sponsored by them, but because they have a great website with tools, charts, and literally every tire you could think of buying. Let's start with a stock tire size comparison. A good example might be something like this 245/75 R16 tire. It's 30.5 inches tall. This is a size that you can find on a lot of light trucks and SUVs. For each tire, we're gonna look at the standard load and then the light truck with a load range E, and we're gonna see what the price difference is. For the 245/75 R16, the Rubatrek comes in at $178 for standard load and $212 for light truck. Moving on to the Wildpeak, it comes in at $193 and $228 respectively. This is an average savings of 15.5 per tire, or 62 for all four. Let's compare 33s, the ever popular 285/70 R17 size. For the Rubatrek, we have 254 and 290. For the Wildpeak, we have 274 and 291. Pretty tight race there on the light truck load range E sizes, only $1 different. On the 285/70 R17, the savings were $10.5 per tire, or 42 for all four. Also, quick rant, 285/70/17 seems like the most overpriced size. Every time I go shopping, I cannot buy that size because it just looks overpriced. You could save a good chunk of cash by going a little narrower, a little shorter, sometimes even a little taller, and you're really not sacrificing anything, you're just going with a different tire size. This one always looks expensive to me. Now, if we go to 35, 12.5, 17, wait, the Rubatrek doesn't come in this size. For whatever reason, the Rubatrek isn't offered in one of the most popular, lucrative sizes of all time, so we have to go to the 315/70 R17, which is basically a 35. By the time we get up to a 35, there are no more standard load tires offered. It's just our light truck load range E tires that we have left to compare. For the Rubatrek, we get 342. For the Wildpeak, we get 355. Savings of $13 per tire, or 52 for all four. So, almost no difference in price here. Over a year ago, when I got my Rubatreks, it was like 30 bucks per tire. I was like, oh my goodness, I see hardly any difference. I'm just gonna go for the Rubatrek. It's a new tire, I'll test it out. This is exciting. Today, there is a $4 difference per tire in the 235/85 R16 size, the size of my truck. So, what the heck? I really thought if we looked at all this data, we might be able to figure out what Falken was thinking when they made this tire. But after looking at all this, it's almost like they're carbon copies of each other. Why offer one and not the other? What's the difference? No difference in price. Their website doesn't give us any differences in performance. Why make either one? Is one a ripoff? Is one a knockoff? Is one way cheaper to manufacture with higher margins? What is going on here? Now, here's what I can tell you having owned both. They're great tires, like they are legitimately good. For both tires, I have taken them off-roading, I've driven in lots of snow, and I have taken extensive long road trips with each tire. I have regular road trips where I go over 1,000 miles, I do it across 2 days. Both have been incredibly good, super stable. I'm usually going between 75 and 85 miles an hour on those trips, and I don't have any complaints. For being an all-terrain tire, they're quiet, they're stable, and they're steady. Even with those great road manners, they don't seem to sacrifice a lot off-road. I've had my Rubatreks in Moab, and I've done some pretty good off-roading with my Wildpeaks here in Idaho. I've put both tires through a regular, overland, slight off-road use case, and they've lasted. They've done really well. So, which should you personally purchase? Well, I can give you a couple different ideas about which way you might lean. If your primary criteria for buying one of these tires is MPG, road noise, or price, it's going to be the Rubatrek in most sizes. It's going to have a better aerodynamic profile, I think, than the Wildpeak, since those sidewalls aren't quite as aggressive. The tighter tread blocks are going to mean a little bit less road noise, and the prices are typically slightly lower. And since they have the same basic warranty, I don't think that you're getting less tire. I think the amount of tire per money, you're actually getting slightly more tire from the Rubatrek. Same tread depth, same warranty. I also compared the weights of these. The weights are identical in all the sizes that I talked about in this video. So you're not going to save any weight by picking one tire over the other, and so there's not going to be any real MPG gains from the weight of the tire. If you are an all-terrain buyer, but you have a lot of concerns about mud or rocks, the AT3W is going to have a slight edge here. If you're looking for looks, the AT3W is a looker. It looks better, it's a slightly more aggressive sidewall and tread pattern. That said, they offer all the same technology. Sidewall, 3-peak mountain snowflake symbol, these really are very similar tires. Overall, the Wildpeak looks to be slightly geared more towards off-roading, and the Rubatrek is supposed to be an off-road, all-terrain tire that has a slight emphasis on road manners compared to the Wildpeak. But don't get confused. The Rubatrek is not some kind of all-season, dumbed-down tire that you shouldn't take seriously. It's still got all the core markings of an all-terrain tire that's serious about winter performance and off-road performance. It just happens to be slightly toned down from its brother, the Wildpeak AT3W. And keep in mind, the AT3W is one of the best all-terrain tires of all time. If the Rubatrek is really using all the same technology, the same compound, similar design principles, it's going to be a similarly great tire. It just has a slightly different emphasis in this case. Overall, both tires are going to offer great off-road performance without completely destroying your driving experience. They're both going to be really good tires. Let me know if you have either of these tires, especially let me know if you have a Rubatrek. Otherwise, be sure to check out other videos on my channel, and thank you so much for watching. Catch you later.